Remember that scene in a popular TV series where the charming advisor greets everyone with a warm smile while secretly plotting to take over the kingdom? You lean in, wondering, can a simple smile mask the darkest of ambitions? Today, we'll explore how Niccolò Machiavelli, often seen as the archetypal political schemer, taught leaders to smile and manipulate. What if the real power lies not just in force, but in the art of appearing friendly even as you pursue ruthless goals? Niccolò Machiavelli, 1469 to 1527, was a diplomat and writer in Renaissance Italy, best known for his short book, The Prince, published in 1532, 5 years after his death. In a time of warring city-states, Florence, Venice, Milan, power shifted at lightning speed. Rulers rose and fell on alliances, betrayals, and strategic marriages. Machiavelli observed all this turmoil and tried to distill it into practical advice for anyone who wanted to seize or hold on to power. By the early 1500s, France and the Holy Roman Empire were meddling in Italian politics, and local lords played them off each other. Machiavelli worked for the Florentine Republic until 1512, when he was dismissed, imprisoned, and tortured for simply serving his city. From that exile came The Prince, a manual on how to build a stable state. Centuries later, his name still stands for cold-blooded tactics. But is that reputation fair, or just an easy shorthand? Despite the centuries separating us from his world, Machiavelli's ideas still matter. Everywhere we look, modern politics, corporate boardrooms, social media influencers, people smile to persuade us while they push agendas behind the scenes. Understanding Machiavelli's advice helps us spot when a friendly face is really a mask for manipulation. On one hand, conventional wisdom paints Machiavelli as the ultimate villain of political theory, a man who argued that the ends justify the means, and that a successful ruler should be willing to do anything, lies, betrayals, even cruelty, to secure power. We often hear Machiavelli quoted alongside examples like Cesare Borgia, the charismatic but ruthless son of Pope Alexander VI, who charmed troops with hospitality one day and had opponents executed the next. We imagine Machiavelli whispering in Borgia's ear, "Be sure to appear merciful, even as you tighten the noose." Indeed, early readings of The Prince emphasize fear over love. Machiavelli famously wrote that it is safer for a ruler to be feared than loved, because men are quicker to wrong you when they love you than when they fear you. That cold formulation fuels our image of Machiavelli, a philosopher of cruelty, advocating cruelty in the name of stability. But on the other hand, a closer look reveals that Machiavelli's true obsession was not brutality per se, but appearance. He knew that few would tolerate raw force if they felt genuinely deceived. So he counseled rulers to show a friendly face, display generosity, compassion, and honesty, while internally preparing for harsh measures when necessary. In other words, Machiavelli believed in smiling even as you manipulate. Consider the mini highlight reel of his advice. Case Study 1. When Pandolfo Malatesta, a 15th century condottiero or mercenary captain, lost control of Rimini, he failed because he openly declared his cruelty. No one trusted him. Machiavelli contrasts him with Scipio Africanus, an ancient Roman general said to be mild and merciful, who won hearts and minds so completely that enemies surrendered without a fight. Case Study 2. Even Lorenzo de' Medici, Florence's de facto ruler, projected images of piety and civic virtue, hosting festivals, funding artists, while quietly silencing rivals. People loved his smile and generosity, never realizing the lengths he'd go to protect his grip on power. Thus, the standard story that Machiavelli simply preached cruelty misses his deeper point. A ruler must cultivate a reputation for virtue while owning the willingness to act immorally. Machiavelli's ideal prince blends the fox's cunning with the lion's strength. Be as sly as a fox, yet as bold as a lion. Here's the twist. Machiavelli wasn't a cynical misanthrope joyfully celebrating deceit. He was a realist who knew that people, subjects, followers, citizens, almost always judge by appearance. He wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Chapter 18. In other words, No matter how skillful or well-intentioned you might be behind the scenes, your outward image carries far more weight. You could read this as a cynical blueprint for tyranny. Use a smile to hide your dagger. But you could also read it as practical wisdom for any leader, political, corporate, even personal, reminding us that trust is built on perception. If your team, family, or community sees you as unfair or unpredictable, smarts alone won't win hearts or loyalty. So Machiavelli isn't saying be evil, but rather manage the story. Another lesser-known fact. Machiavelli believed that if a ruler must be cruel, say, to subdue a rebellion, he should commit the act swiftly, then wash his hands of it. Punish all at once, make it clear why, and then stop. Spread out cruelty, he warned, breeds resentment and endless plotting. But swift, necessary action, if followed by a return to generosity, lets people focus on your kindness, not your severity. In other words, a judicious combination of mercy and force is better than either alone. Why does this matter? Because it reframes Machiavelli not as a teacher of raw evil, but as a guide to human nature. He understood that behind every handshake might lurk betrayal, and behind every scowl might lie goodwill. Smart leaders learn to navigate that tension, when to be frank and when to conceal. When we zoom out, it becomes clear that Machiavelli's legacy stretches far beyond 16th century Florence. Modern politicians use focus groups and spin doctors to polish their images. CEOs hire PR firms to craft narratives that highlight their company's virtues, while quietly lobbying or cutting corners behind closed doors. Even on social media, influencers smile and manipulate by carefully curating posts. An inviting selfie might hide a behind-the-scenes sponsorship. Ultimately, Machiavelli teaches us that in any human interaction, political, professional, or personal, reputation is power. His lesson: if you want people to follow you willingly, give them reasons to trust the mask. Then, if you must act decisively, even harshly, make it swift and limited. Afterward, return to generosity so that the smile overpowers the memory of manipulation. As Machiavelli himself put it, men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. Chapter 18. Next time you see a friendly face, on TV, in the office, or even in your own reflection, ask yourself, is the smile genuine, or is it carefully crafted to win me over? Remember that beneath every grin could lie a strategy, and recognizing that is the first step towards seeing the world as Machiavelli saw it, a stage where appearances can change everything. Seek wisdom.